Today we're running two Helsian Metropolitan city trams. One is Sarah Siddon's. Now we can do this because we've got an O gauge transformer, 2.5 amp gauge master model DO, and we've got enough power to run two analogue locomotives. If you try this with a 1 amp double O gauge controller, the chances are it'll trip or they will not run. But because we've got an O gauge transformer, we have enough amperage to run two double O gauge locomotives on the same track. We have also got a class 85, a Bachmann locomotive, electric locomotive, running on the other track, and you're going to see that to your top right coming around the corner now. And here it comes now. You can see it just coming through in the background. We do not have pantographs because one, getting them to work properly is a devil's own job. Two, when it comes to cleaning the track or locos derailing, try getting your fingers among wires and pantographs. It's a big no-no. And people might say, well, it's not realistic. Well, you can go on and on and on. It's not realistic having a steam train going around without smoke. You know, I like the locomotives. I climbed over these as a kid in the sidings, which you couldn't do now. And I think they look pretty good. And yes, they did use them as freight trains. And they still use the 87s in Bulgaria for freight and passenger trains. Having a pantograph on a display layout to show, which is 5 feet long and 2 feet wide, with a minimal of track and you're only going to run an electric locomotive, is wonderful. But for us, where we run loads of different types of rolling stock, it's a case of mixing in what is practical and what is not. And we still think they look quite effective. Now, what I will say is, if these trams were digital, which you can digitalise them, with a Gauge Master Advanced Prodigy 2, you could program the trams to stop and start at different parts of the track, change direction. You can do all sorts of stuff. The Gauge Master Prodigy 2 is way above our remit. However, should we wish to become advanced and do it with any digital locomotive, we have the option there. They're both pretty much just as good, the Bachmann 85 and the Hornby 87. The only difference is the Bachmann's got engine panel lights and a driver and his mate, whereas the Hornby one does not. But it has cab lights and it's still a pretty good locomotive. It's just the Bachmann has the edge a little bit. But what I like about running things around like this is there's always lots for the eye to watch. These little trams we got, don't laugh, £60 each. Hatton's Side of the Century. I think this must have been about 2 years ago now, mustn't it?
Nearly 3.
Nearly 3 years when we were giving everything away. And we spent a lot of money and got a lot of stock that day. Okay, you're pretty limited to what you can do, these being analogue locomotives, we're fully aware of that. But as long as you keep an eye on the speed of the two on the same track, and these run at roughly the same speed, these Helsian trams, then you're pretty much okay. They have got headlights, but they've got or driving lights, but they do not have any red warning lights. They do not have any drivers. They do have cab lights, but you can't see them unless it's exceedingly dark and you're running them around like Scalextric's cars. But you can see they run really, really nicely. And the grey one is called London Transport. I thought it was. And when they look like they're catching up, the grey one is a fraction faster. You just change direction. I haven't run these, this 85 and 87 for a long time, and we do have an 86 as well. It just reminded me of them going to King's Cross in Euston, where you got all the pantographs, because this is why they electrified these lines. One of the reasons, there was the West Coast line, and Euston used to be full of these, and that's why they changed the station, and in my view wrecked it and turned it into an Eastern Bloc looking place to accommodate the West Coast line. Believe it or not, Triang made one. I don't know whether it was an 85, 86 or 87, but they made one with a working pantograph. And that was, I think, in the 60s or 70s. And those that like working pantographs, Hornby's Class 71, you can run that from the track or from the pantograph. So you can still buy a Hornby locomotive today that will run off pantograph electricity. And now you've got London Transport, and you should just see the lights. You're going to see the cab lights and the red warning light, I would hope, of the Class 85. Here comes Sarah Siddons, and here comes Robert Stevenson. Do you want to turn the lights off so we can, please, so we can just see the lights? Now you can see the cab lights. In all fairness, the cab lights are far better in the Bachmann model. The Bachmann model, being an 85, has got a head code board. Now you should just be able to see the lights of Sarah Siddons. Now you can see the lights of London Transport tram. One of these, I think one's in the London Transport Museum, and there is one that actually works, which may be that one, I'm not sure, but it does still work. Here come the lights of Robert Stephenson. I can just see the cab lights, but they're not as good as the Bachmann ones. Here's an overhead shot. There's the Class 85. And there's Robert Stephenson. And here's a panoramic view focusing on the trams. You will catch Robert Stephenson coming through. And as you know, these freight wagons we bought for £12 each from TMC. The pipes are straws, sprayed silver with Helford's paint, and the boulders are put on, a little bit of balsa wood to lighten them. The grey one is just slightly faster. London Transport Metropolitan tram is just slightly faster than Sarah Sydney's. So there isn't going to be a calamity here. Thank you for watching, and we both hope you've enjoyed seeing this variety of locomotives and freight stock run. Thank you.